4, and Tirreno-Adriatico Stage 3. I've got to make sure I get them right because they're on different orders. Paris could have been the biggest GC stage today. It was maybe the hardest stage in the race, and maybe even given the weather conditions around the traps, it will be that, because there's snow and weather predicted this weekend. That was sort of the early news, was that that there's like 70 centimeters or like whatever centimeters of snow predicted for the weekend up at 1600 meters. So the Oran stage 7, the mountaintop finish, that looks, I'd be very surprised if it happens. And then in Nice on stage 8, there could be flooding on the stage 8 as well. So this could end up being like the Tirreno-Adriatico Van Avermaet one, Benji.
Ooh, that's a memory. And also, wasn't there also like a super rainy Pologne that Wellens ended up winning because some stages got cancelled? There's been a few of those, but this could indeed be that, or reminiscent of the last few stages of the Tour de France that Bernal ended up winning, even though that had at least 19 stages that were fully ridden, if I recall correctly. Yeah. But anyway, about this specific race, you're right, and that puts so much on this stage where I'm like, if you're Remco before the stage and you see that news, do you even attack then?
Well, he's not in the yellow jersey, is he?
Well, I know against UAE, yes, but I mean, you're right. Versus Roglic.
Well, yeah, Rog's got to go if he wants to win. He's got to go. I mean, if they basically new to the mountaintop finish and then they do like one local lap on stage 8, you're not going to take a minute if you want to win the race. So it really, I thought last night I already did a big rant about I wanted to see a raid today, Benji. And then when the weather news came out, I was like, this is now a no-brainer. No, if you want to win the race, you have to try something today. It would Visma with Jorgensen, Roglic with Bora, Remco with Quickstep, and UAE they don't have to do anything.
And in addition to that, you got to keep in mind that UAE is going to have to choose between 3.5 leaders for who's going to pace first and who's going to pace next. When it comes to domestique work, if someone goes early, then we look at other teams, and I'm looking at Quickstep, where I'm on Wilder's an okay domestique, Vervaak is an okay domestique, but I also feel like that Quickstep's team is still not the super team when it comes to controlling any attacks on earlier climbs. Then when it comes to Bora, Vlasov's a co-leader on paper, so will he put himself in the works for Roglic? So there's so many teams that have limited domestiques or aren't necessarily. It's not a Jumbo-Visma Tour de France super team or a UAE super team from the Tour de France with one leader in Pogacar that fully rides for him and so forth. So that's also why I think attacks would have been an interesting idea. And let's get into the stage before we jump to that, though, because
profile.
You can do that first.
It is finishing on Montbrouillet. They have basically 8 or 9 major climbs throughout the race, all category 2s except for the Col du Fou d'Havana, Le Chap, which is the second last climb. They're all around 3 to 5Ks, 6 to 7%. Col de Derbies is the exception. 9%, 2.3 kilometers. It's an intermediate sprint on a little 1,300 meter 5% kicker, which is the third last climb. And then they go straight into that longer 5K, 7% climb. Descent, then into Montbrouillet, 3K, 7.7%. They've already done a lap of it. About a 7-minute climb, 8-minute climb, give or take. 184Ks, really hard stage. 3,500 meters of climbing, up and down all day. Rainy conditions. It's a hard stage, and there's early climbs to form a good break too.
And the breakaway that did form wasn't necessarily the 7-man, 8-man breakaway. There's just some good riders in there. Like Scaroni's a good rider in my opinion on Astana. The Buys not necessarily the rider you would want to have in the stage in the breakaway, I think. Billy was out of this race, so they had to try something, I guess, on every stage to win breakaways, but he's not going to move the needle here. Bissiger as well, not feeling like he's going to move the needle in a breakaway. Burgodeau only there for the KOM points, and that's what he does. Takes KOM points. And those 3 get dropped by Scaroni because he's eventually just the best climber. So that's the story of the breakaway with 35 kilometers to go. Scaroni is finito. He's been caught by the peloton. And during this time, we've seen Bora control the gap to the breakaway because they see the stage as something they can maybe do something on, or a stage as, okay, this is a Roglic kind of finish. And every now and then, I feel like there was a moment where Ben Turner was pulling the peloton on. It might have been the first Montbrouillet, the one before we get to the Col du Feu d'Avena. And it seems that Ineos maybe dare try to make the race a little bit harder by doing that, but I don't think that necessarily moved much of the needle either, because I feel like the descent of that Broe was more impactful than the actual climbing segment, where there was a small split. Arche Desert with Gal was behind. They had to try and get back to the favorites group, which was being led by Bora, and that was in a run-in towards an intermediate sprint. And this is not one of those flat intermediate sprints. There's like a proper climbing section towards it, which made it a lot harder for Pedersen to play a role here, because I'm trying to figure out here, is Pedersen competing in the intermediate sprint against Remco, against Roglic, and so forth for his green jersey, or to take away seconds for Skelmose?
Based on the other day, I think still to take seconds away for Skelmose, because he was meant to break more.
And it doesn't work out probably because of the hill that came before that intermediate sprint, because he finishes third in that. Yes, he might take away bonus seconds from some other people, but not from Remco and not from Roglic, because that's the 6 seconds, I think, for Remco and 4 for Roglic, or is it 3-1 in Paris?
6-4-2.
Yeah, I thought so. So that's the story there. And Jurgensen was also fighting for these intermediate sprint points, and seconds at least. And there's this moment where I've asked myself this quite a few times in the last few years. What happens after an intermediate sprint? What happens after a bonus second sprint? Every now and then we see them looking at each other. This time it seems like Jorgensen wanted to keep it going. Remco then decided, after looking behind a bit and analyzing the situation, I'm also going to ride with Jorgensen. And then Roglic pulled through eventually as well. But there was always this waiting period, right? Between the riders pulling.
This is where everyone lost me today. They lost me. I couldn't elicit a plan out of Visma, Bora, Ineos, Quickstep. I couldn't figure it out. You're going to pull all day. Roglic 1 minute back. Takes 4 bonies, I think. 4 bonies. Then gets in a group. No UAE. Soler's dropped. Großschartner's dropped. Pollitt's dropped. And Vine was at the back. And then, bear in mind, on stage 1, Remco wants to pull through with 7 guys on a sprint stage.
Yeah.
And then doesn't pull here after the intermediate. And Roglic doesn't really pull. Okay, Pithy doesn't have to pull. I think Jorg pulled once or twice.
Yeah, it's like...
I was like, are you serious? You have Platt behind. Like, you know you have to take the time somewhere. And also, Bora made the stage hard all day. They're running out of domestiques. I don't know why when the break was caught already, Jungels is driving it full. I was like, to catch who? What are you doing?
And it felt like they were all looking at each other a bit too long before deciding to do one pull. And after that one pull each, they decided, let's not do it. And then the group came back, which it's really unfortunate, because you're right, this is an opportunity to keep going because there's no UAE riders in the group. But I think the fear of the next couple of climbs got into them, which
it was a big peloton behind. I accept that, but suddenly 4 people start rolling through. What then? Then Harper there is Harper to pull.
Yeah,
play devil's advocate. There's Harper to pull for Jayco, but then they have to sacrifice him. There's Vine to pull for UAE, and Ineos were pulling as well with Freyler, because Bernal didn't really contest the Boney sprint, or wasn't able to. But that is the other side of it. Like, you're going to have to then ride against other domestiques who are bringing guys back.
And Freyler seemed like he was going off the front while that was still getting caught back, and then it was up to UAE already. So I don't know. I would have liked to see it going just to see what happens, but it's not the end of the world that they didn't, I guess, because they still had an opportunity on the next climb to maybe go for an earlier raid than the last climb. So we get to that Col du Feu d'Avena.
So in that moment, UAE must have been laughing.
They were certainly happy.
Yeah.
Well, they spend a little bit of energy to close down a group that self-neutralized themselves. So I think they will be happy with that situation. And we get to that Col du Feu d'Avena. It's a longer climb, but I feel like there's this moment on the climb that we go onto a steeper segment after a 90-degree corner, and that's where it kind of kicked off between brackets, as in a mini kicked off. Because Vervaak is leading the group, Plaps in second wheel, they turn onto that corner, and Vervaak and Plap just ride off.
Bear in mind, Plap is leading GC if you take away the 4 UAE riders.
Yeah.
Like Plap's on 15 seconds. So he's leading, like he's up there on GC. And stages could be cancelled on the weekend, as a reminder. And yeah, it was strange. Like either he pulled too strong or someone lost the wheel. But this is where, yeah, Quickstep kind of fucked up the stage. Like I thought frankly, I thought this was going to be a Remco like Hill Classic stage, and I thought he was going to launch on this, possibly on this climb, because it even the last kilometer of it's 9.4%, and it really kicks up. It really suits him for that sprint over the top.
And it's something I've repeated a few times, but I feel like GC Remco is different from one-day Remco. GC Remco, when mountain stages hit, he turns into the rider that all the other GC riders are, as in most of them.
Yeah,
kind of defensive, trying to figure that out, instead of using what he uses to win those one-day races.
I agree.
As in, if he attacks on Fudavana, and let's say he gets a gap, hypothetically, he gets a gap, aren't we literally having an LBL situation where it's him versus a group with limited domestiques trying to chase him down? And even with domestiques, he's beaten them in the past. So it's like he doesn't want to take that risk in a stage race.
Well, here's the hypothetical. If this is a one-day race, does he want to ride to the finish to have a sprint from a group of 20 against Roglic and Skelmoser? Absolutely not. In no world would he ride a one-day race that way. So there's the proof. Or maybe that wasn't the plan, Benji. And maybe the plan was to go on this climb, and then the gap with Vavaka. Vavaka gets the call on the radio, stops. Plap's now got like a 15-second gap for free, quote unquote, whilst the peloton didn't chase behind. And I think he makes a really good decision here. I mean, not just in hindsight, but at the time. First of all, he's not as explosive as the other GC riders, so he'll probably get gapped on the finish if he's in that group. He's more of a time trialist. Secondly, his descending's not that good at World Tour level. That's the reality. And to do the descent solo in front in a group of one or two, I think is much better for him. And then also, I think he can really pull on the false flat downhill really, really hard before Mont Bruy.
Yep.
So it's a really good move for Plap. He goes on with it. And then no one jumps. He's now leading GC virtually on the climb. And maybe I understand, like, he's not in an Ineos jersey anymore as Jaco. Maybe he gets more leeway and, hasn't done as much in World Tour GC races. But in Europe, I was surprised no one apart from Santi jumps because, Buitrago goes across to him. Other teams, Benji, have cards to play who are within a minute on GC. Yeah.
Looking at Bora, for example, they end up starting to pace behind these guys with, I think it was Sobrero at this point on the climb. Well, they have Vlasov, and maybe Vlasov just wasn't good enough to do that, but I would have expected Vlasov to maybe be the guy that could make that move to put pressure on the other teams, and then Roglic is in a seat behind them. But it felt like they were playing the traditional strategy of just keeping all the riders around the leader and then seeing where that gets them. And I don't know, I would have liked seeing Vlasov jump with Buitrago and so forth and seeing that
Wilder,
scenario build up.
Kelderman.
Exactly. So
Rodriguez
teams.
or Bernal, probably Rodriguez.
Yeah, probably Rodriguez.
Other teams got options. And again, UAE are laughing. Well, not laughing, but Bora are pacing steadily, and they get to sit in the group, and they've not been attacked yet.
One UAE rider that wasn't laughing was Finn Fisher-Black, who ended up dropping on this climb. And I think this was also the moment where in the group was a bit of an odd crash, as in Gudu was taking out his jacket, and it looked like while doing so on like a 13% section, it like straight up swashed into his wheel and he crashes. And it leads to Aurélien Parepintre and Felix Gall of the other French team crashing as well. So those three riders are now behind as a consequence of that kind of silly crash. It's really unfortunate to see that happen at this point, because that takes away Gall's chances and Godu's chances to really fight for it on this stage, to be honest. And Godu after this was done for. Like,
either physically or mentally done.
Yeah, because he had issues following Pacher after this, is what seemed to be the case to me. And we get to the top. Bora keeps pacing. And at the top, Vlasov and Roglic are isolated. So they don't have the domestiques anymore going into the descent. Vine takes over in that descent. And were you surprised to see Vine at the front?
Well, no. UAE got to have somebody. Like, they got to have someone chasing and no one else is pacing. And you've got and I think the gap was 15, 17 seconds at this point, not out of hand. Vine on the descent, it's a long descent too. He keeps it stable. You've got our mate, Jorgensen moves into second wheel. Remco's leaving a big gap every corner on the descent. Every corner. And I think they get to the bottom. The situation hasn't changed. We still got a pretty big GC group with all the hitters there. Golish, Gilmez, Roglic, Vlasov, Kelderman, Jorgensen, everybody, Evenepoel, Van Wilder, Rodriguez, Bernal. Multiple teams, multiple teammates. Get to the base, and Vine just pulls up stumps. He wasn't finished, Benji, but he just pulls up stumps at the base of the descent. And I kind of like it.
As in, my work is done, I'm out.
No, it was you guys chase Ineos. You have 5 riders.
Yes, and in addition to that, he had a bit of a wobbly moment, I think, at the foot of Mont Bruy, where he was near the front of the group. He ends up being behind that Ineos rider that is spacing at that moment. Ineos rider moves to the right while Vine looks to be looking behind him, going into a little, what do you call that? Speed bump? Yes, speed bump thingy. And at that point, he like nearly crashed. So lucky that he stayed on the bike and did a dropping not long after. But we're heading into the Mont Bruy climb, and the gap.
Do you think Ineos were right for? Were you surprised that they A, paced, and B, that when they did pace, the gap like didn't change when Castro and De Plus were pulling?
Firstly, at this point, I don't really care if Ineos are spacing or not, because what are these domestiques going to do otherwise? Like,
yeah, I think it's
they're
fine.
there. You might as well use them is the thing in my head, because otherwise you're not fighting for the stage anyway. And yes, they're taking away work from UAE, that UAE might have to choose a leader to do that. But at that point, UAE is left with like there are 2 riders that are at the top of GC. So you might as well start pacing with Ineos, because that's unlikely to expose an Ineos, a UAE leader at that point. Secondly, was I surprised that they were losing time? I don't know. I feel like, is it me, or these are not the domestiques that are gonna take time on Plap on this segment in my head. So that didn't necessarily shock me. But also when it comes to Buitrago being at the front, the gap also kept going up. So there's no way they were soft pacing at that point in my head. So they were trying to close that gap down towards Mont Bruy. And yeah, I was kind of surprised that the gap was maybe extending so significantly. As in, if it went up like 1 or 2 seconds, 3 seconds, fine. But it went up to like 40, 48 seconds at a certain point. But at the foot, it was 40 seconds, if I recall.
Yeah.
Buitrago,
that's still a big gap against 2 good riders. And Santi's good on these sort of climbs. The guy podiumed Liège on a 7-minute climb, 3K, 7.5%.
Yeah, and his tactics were on point, even though me as a famous Luke Plap.
Plap was never winning this stage. Never, ever.
Well, I can fanboy, my friend. I can fanboy. It's unlikely that he's going to win the stage. And it became more unlikely when Buitrago stayed in his wheel for the first portion, because he was like, I'll take the stage. You're in the virtual lead. Do it.
Yeah. Santi was always going to be like, nah, you're ahead of me on GC. You ride for the yellow jersey. I'm gonna ride. I want that stage win. And if I could go up some GC positions into the top 10, I'll take it as well. So, yeah, and also he's more explosive. And you could tell Plap almost knew it was coming, Benji, because Santi hits him, probably goes to 7 watts per kilo or over 400 watts, 10, 15 seconds. Plap basically doesn't react. Yep. And you think, oh, is he fucked? But then the whole rest of the climb, they basically do the climb the same speed, him and Santi. Yep. So he was clearly just riding to, because he's got such a big gap now. Yeah, he can play for GC positions. And back in the GC group, Benji, it's being paced by Van Wilder. Vlasov started at the bottom, but he was kind of cooked already. And it was really Van Wilder for a long, long, long time. And he didn't gain any time on Plap, let alone Buitrago. The gap went up. The gap went to like 42, 45 from memory, just about. And eventually we see an attack from Remco, maybe, I don't know, 500 meters to go or something in the corners, in the forest.
I think it was a bit earlier. It was 500 at the top, if I recall correctly, but that was for the breakaway at that point. So I reckon it was about 800, 900 meters. But I felt like that first attack just wasn't very hard. That first attack, it exposed the people that were supposed to drop at that point. But when it comes to the actual opposing leaders, like you'd expect a Roglic to follow a Jorgensen, a Skjelmos, a UAE leader, and so forth. And that was the case. I think Almeida was doing his thingy again. Because I didn't necessarily see him in those first 6 riders when that move happened.
Both him and McNulty were like They were struggling.
And the second attack was where it looked a bit more fierce, no?
Yeah, the second attack, he really gave it some. And I think he was, well, he probably would have been expecting Roglic, right? Like, this is a Roglic stage. Bora have ridden all day, and Roglic is deep. And he's not like, remember Catalunya, Benji, last year on this sort of stage?
Yeah.
Roglic is like glued to Remco's wheel.
Yeah.
But he's behind. There's Skelmoser and Remco's wheel. Then there's Gol and Jorgensen, and then Bernal Roglic. Roglic is like not moving up quickly. Gol looks really, really good. He's moving up on the inside. I think he had a dig in between Remco's two moves, if you didn't mention that. And yeah, Remco goes again. Almeida's on a gap this time, stays on a gap, and basically they sprint it out for the... Oh, sorry. Santi goes clear, wins the stage. That goes without saying. Plapp in second on 10 seconds, and then Remco does a long lead out, and Skelmoser just comes over the top of him at the end for 4 bonies. So Remco misses out on 4 bonus seconds. Bernal then on a 2-second gap in a group of Gol, Roglic, and Jorgensen. Tejada on another 4-second gap, so 6 seconds behind Skelmoser Remco on 43 seconds. He looks very good, and Astana did a really good TT yesterday for the team they had. McNulty and Kelderman on a 9-second gap, and then Almeida on a 11-second gap. Then there's Uran, APP, Rodriguez on 59 on 20 seconds. Vlasov loses, can I count? 30 seconds, 32 seconds to the Remco Skelmoser group. So and he's kind of out of GC completely now.
This is after APP saved Gal's life also on the previous climb, where he came back on the foot after that little skirmish crash with Godu. Godu is like Shadow Realm, 6 minutes. Oof.
Yeah. So and Gol got gapped on the descent by Jungels before the intermediate sprint. I swear something happened, the same thing in the Tour de France last year, stage 14, when Van Aert was in the front and there was a split with Yates and Gol behind before Juplin.
Yeah, correct.
Could be wrong. I could be wrong.
I think you're right, though.
So Gol, that was position, though.
Lessons learned of this stage. First of all, is it weird for me to say that Primoz Roglic on Jumbo-Visma wins this stage?
I don't think it's a guarantee. Primoz Roglic lost uphill sprints to Remco Evenepoel up here next to my house last year in the Vuelta. And he lost to Ciccone, that side of my house in Catalunya on Valter.
Yeah.
Or no, not Valter. Or yeah, it might have been Valter. So, but he ain't getting gapped like that. Yeah. That's what you mean. It's like, and he wasn't even, it's not like, I think in those Catalunya stage, for example, he threw in a dig and then Ciccone just nailed him on Valter. Here, he's like clinging on for dear life and being put on a gap.
Is it possible that he's losing time in the positioning towards the hills? Because I felt like every single hill that started and every single segment where you'd want to be at the front, he was not at the front. And then he'd have to move up a little bit after that. And I think that's one factor, maybe.
That was a problem on Visma too.
Yeah, but not on these climbs.
Yeah, true.
Like, it was a problem in like San Remo or something, but not on a climb in Paris-Nice or something. Then he'd be at the front with a proper Visma train in front of him and Jumbo-Visma train back then. But like, Bora was isolated with just Vlasov and him for the final climb, which they kind of did themselves.
Well, that's why I couldn't really figure out what the plan was. I think he'll be ruining it even as well as Quickstep, because you've got... Well, actually, Luke just mentioned in the chat, to your point, Benji, if he was on Visma, then Plapp and Buitrago don't just go up the road like that.
Fair point.
Because they keep the bonies in play with Kelderman pacing or somebody like that. But Quickstep also will be ruining missed bonies and a missed stage win opportunity for Remco. And it's like we said, like, I still think Remco, like, he should have at least come second in the stage. Like, and I think when you look at where Skelmoser was on other climbs, the way this stage played out was perfect for Skelmoser.
Yep.
For basically, it wasn't slow. Listen, I know it's not slow, but it was for the Montbrouillet, the final Montbrouillet with the way Van Wilder paced. It wasn't really rapid like they can do it with other riders. And I also think the way the stage played out didn't suit Jorgensen at all. It ended up being a 500-meter uphill sprint against Skelmoser, Roglic, and Evenepoel, not his forte. And I think a hill classic in the rain like this, he would have been better off in a different, like Plap style. But the reality is, I think if a Visma rider jumps there, he doesn't get the leeway Plap does. But you don't know. Fortune favors the brave. So I think big congrats to Bahrain and Plap. Maybe that wasn't the plan for Plap to get 15 free seconds from Vivaka, but he went on with it. And Santi, I love Santi. I listened to his pre-race interview this morning. I knew he'd try something. He was like, yeah, I'm looking for an opportunity. Yeah.
Comparing that to the Remco pre-race interview that I heard on Sports today, where the interview was like, what's the plan for today? And he was like, there's no plan. And
I think that's like sometimes a bad attitude that teams have, is that it's like UAE's in the lead, so UAE solve it all. Even though you should be trying to achieve something on this stage with the parkour that suits your riders.
His take was basically, shouldn't you be taking any time on UAE, is what the interviewer asked. And he was like, I think that's going to happen automatically as the stage continues. Riders will drop.
Okay, that is true. They did drop at the end. But I'm telling you, with the legs they had today, the way the stage played out, Almeida and Minalti, they should go back to the bus today, and all those UAE guys should be smiling. They should be smiling, because the weekend stages, listen, if they get cancelled and they get killed in the weekend stages, it doesn't matter. But I'll remind you, Almeida last year in Paris-Nice, or McNulty the other year in Paris-Nice, 2022, they were really bad in the earlier stages, and then on the long climb called the Turini, where it was Martinez and Roglic, they were good. They were really good, and they held on well there. So it doesn't mean they're going to be bad on the later stages, but those stages might also be cancelled. And here's the revised GC. We've got Luke Plap, bang, first. Look at that. Off Ineos, onto Jaco Alula, into the GC lead. I'm liking that we're keeping it in Antipodean hands. 3 different Antipodeans in a row. Thanks very much.
What a clean Santos Down Under. Still saying it.
I don't know. Maybe not. Santi in second on 13 seconds. McNulty and Almeida on 27.29. Remco moves up 3 spots into 5th on 30 seconds. But now, he is right in a sense, Benji. Remco is 1 bonus sprint away from being ahead of Almeida and McNulty. So
yeah,
he really doesn't have to do too much. But now they've got to get rid of Santi and Plap at some point. Bernal looked really, really good in 6th on 40 seconds. Harper in 7th on 46 seconds. Jorgensen on 52 seconds. So he was stronger than Harper, Almeida, and McNulty today. But they're still ahead of him. Uran in 9th on 54 seconds, and C-Rod on 102. Gold moves up 13 spots, also on 102. So, wow, where did Van Wilder finish this stage? Oh, he did lose a fair bit of time. So, Vlasov on 148.
He also didn't look like he was flying anymore when he was doing the pacing for Remco on that climb. But I will say, for Quickstep strategy today, it's really all about that one move on Fudana, right? If Vervaeke doesn't accidentally launch Plap, then Buitrago doesn't get that bridge to that rider to bridge towards, and that rider that can ride with him after that climb either. And if it's just the group behind that goes to the line without that group ahead, then I'd argue this was a relatively perfect stage, being only 3 seconds behind. And even though ideally you would want more, ideally you would want to be above them, knowing the stages disappear potentially.
So Luke just told me that Amati Piorelli on Twitter said that Santi did the climb today, Montbrui, the last 2.5 Ks at the same speed, 1 second slower than the Bernal, Roglic, Jorgensen group, and 3 seconds slower than Skelmoser, Evenepoel. So basically, Santi took a lot of time that when he kicked away from Plap. And he was very strong. And I don't think you should just think, okay, maybe the longer climb, whatever. Don't be so sure you're going to drop the Liège-Bastogne-Liège podium finisher on stage 8. They're just going to drop him. Or he won't come back. Bahrain, good GC team. So...
And also, it's 30 seconds for Remco. It's 27 seconds for UAE, which that's quite a bit of timing. It's not like It's going to be
But that's
simple
what I mean.
to do that.
That's why it's a problem what this happened. If, okay, I can be like, oh, they should have done a raid. Why did they do this? It's a PlayStation game. I understand. Like, okay, it's not realistic sometimes.
To be fair,
that would be fine.
most of the time it is.
Yeah, that would be fine if Santi and Plap didn't just take all that time. Because, yeah, if Remco was sitting 3 seconds behind the UAE guys who he just dropped with a sprint today, he is sitting pretty and he doesn't have to do anything. But now you got a problem you got to solve later on. And maybe Santi just drops later. Maybe Plap does. But they weren't shit on Montbrouillet at all. They rode that like proper GC contenders. Anything else from this stage? Benji. Oh, Roglic. He's on 1:10 in GC. What has he got to do?
I don't know, man. Like, he didn't look that impressive today. Being gapped on that climb, that shouldn't happen. So, is it too early to say that it's prim over for this Paris-Nice?
It's going to be difficult. Yeah.
I fear so as well. That's all, to be honest, about this stage.
Okay. Tomorrow's stage 5, from Saint-Sauveur de Montaigu to Sisteron, 195 kilometers long. Long stage, could be raining. It's like medium mountain, but like long false flat drags. There's a bonus sprint at the top of 1K, 6%, where they go just after the finish line and then they come back around and finish on the flat. Yeah, it kind of looks like a sprint stage, but to me, this is the Andrea Baggioli against 4 French riders, VMO's breakaway stage, right?
But Burgodeau's going to be in the break for KOM. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So your chance of having Jordan Géga in there is limited unless Total has 2 riders in the breakaway, which they haven't done usually. But who else could be in that breakaway? That's the real question, eh? Who else could be in that breakaway that could win the stage? I'm going through all the teams right now. I'm trying to figure out. Have we seen any form on Zimmerman lately?
Not really. Oh, he's okay in TDU, maybe?
Fuck it. Zimmerman's going to win the stage.
Okay.
Even though hard for him to win, but YOLO.
Decline, Groenewegen, Jacobsen, Ackerman, all made, and Caden Groves, all made the time cut without any problems. Sam Bennett as well. So all the sprinters, Lecoq, they're still in the race. So maybe if the sprinters teams do get together, they can control this. But I would like to see some teams trying to get in the breakaway tomorrow, particularly, I don't know.
To be honest, if
Ewan Kostiou for Arkea.
If you're Trek and you see the others are helping you control the breakaway formation and the earlier part of the stage, I consider going ham on the last 3 categorized climbs to drop whoever you can and see if you can lead Pedersen to a stage win.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you won't drop Groves, but Jacobsen and the other guys I mentioned decline. They will drop on that Sisteron climb.
Might not, though.
Who?
Koi is relatively versatile.
Oh, yeah, Koi's here.
Mate, you should know.
Listen, you know I like GC. I'm a GC guy. You're right. On 1K, 6%, he shouldn't drop.
Nah, it's going to be a sprint.
You think so?
That's in the chat for Zimmerman. Yeah.
I think so as well. There's too many teams that have sprinters that still want to have a crack at this, and there's not that dominant guy that, like, they'll think they can beat Pedersen, and maybe they're right too. So you're right. It should be a sprint, but I'm going to go with Ewan Kostiou from the breakaway. Arkea B&B Hotel. Do not put it all in for Damar. Come on,
that prediction will cost you.
Yeah, they got to go on the break. Come on, Kostiou. He is in good form. That guy. He's really strong. My picks for, I think, who did I pick for today for the stage? Ioni Zagira. I think he got dropped in the last 10 minutes, so that went well. So I'm on fire. All right. Tirreno-Adriatico. This was 225 kilometers. I went on another long rant yesterday. Get in the breakaway. And we had our Korotec and Bardiani breakaway, Benji, in this sort of tricky sprint stage. I always thought the sprinters could get through it. It is 1K, sort of 5% climb, 1K from the finish, crest 1K from the finish. But who did get in the break in the end? Your Slovakian friend. No.
It was famous Swiss rider Jan Stöckli from Team Korotec, Vinny Fantini, Very respected man, very respected country. I apologize for my words yesterday. Don't take my cheese away. Anyway, oh, my voice just died. Zoccarato was in the breakaway too. I think he's in Bardiani. I think. But anyway, that was a two-man breakaway. Got caught eventually, and then I started tuning in into the broadcast at about 15k to go. So I don't know what else happened in this stage before 15k to go. I just know that EF was pacing on the Casa Castalda climb, and at a certain point, Carapaz was at the front of the group pacing.
Yeah, they're obviously trying to make it hard. This is the finish that NVDP won and did. Did the arms cross celebration in 2021 ahead of
that was harder.
No, I think it was this finish, but I thought that was like more of a consistent drag. I think though, Alaphilippe won the Bellagio one the day before, which was harder, and then NVDP won this one. I remember I was on the Gold Coast. I can remember. I did, yeah. And anyway, Bettiol I'm pretty sure was okay on that finish, and Bettiol's not got a bad sprint uphill, but this isn't like it does have a little uphill kicker at the end. And they make it hard, but you see Benji as they come over the crest of that 7k 3% climb. The peloton's massive, and it's not straight into the finish either. There is time for all the sprinters to move back up. There's enough time because unless EF can put the best rouleurs in the world and pace full gas all the way to the base of the next climb, there's going to be a lull, and we duly see Alpecin move Philipsen right to the front. Quickstep move Merlier right to the front. So if they're there, then Bauhaus is there, and everybody else is there. So, but then, what did you see in the run into that like 1k kicker?
Well, first of all, Strong was good. He was strong together with his team. Simon Clark from Israel brought forward. Yep. Corbin strong. Milan was in a good position. And like the thing with Alpecin, like you mentioned, is that yes, they had 3 riders with about 4k to go, but they just started running out of men. So their strategy was just to put Philipsen in there to then figure it out himself once the climb started, is how I perceived it, because he was isolated when that started. And that brings him into a moment with 1.2-ish k to go where he's in P6 behind the Clark Strong duo, behind Jonathan Milan. So he's kind of going into this like squeezy last kilometer, because it's kind of a snaky last kilometer, right? It's not straightforward. There's small narrow bends everywhere, so it's going to be hard to move up, and that leads to what's going to happen in the last kilometer, right? But by the way, at this point, I hadn't even perceived a Bahrain rider on my screen.
Yeah, they actually like kept a rider for the proper leader, and they had like 3 riders just about there. Yeah. They were, if you look at the hats at 500 meters to go after that little kicker, you can see about 4 of their helmets in the front 10, 12 riders. It's like they really... They had the right riders for this stage. I don't know where Binny was. Something happened to him, Benji, but he was just about second favorite for this stage. And yeah, he wasn't in good position. And there's this left-hand turn, 300 meters to go. Pasqualon maybe goes underneath Bauhaus. Bauhaus actually just comes right over the top because I think Albanese... Let me get the arcade. It's Vauquelin. What the fuck?
Yes. My reaction too.
Okay. Vauquelin jumps. These stages are always interesting. Like it could be any rider, you know. Vauquelin.
You in costume?
He's in France. He jumps and basically Bauhaus undercuts the corner and slides in front of his lead out to get that lead out from the big Volk. And it's perfect timing from him. And at the same time, Philipsen, who lost positions on the little kick up, and he went to Milan's wheel, and I think that was a mistake because Milan gets lost. He struggles with positioning. And then Philipsen tries to, in that corner, move up the inside, and basically, I think, trying to see what happens exactly. Zangler moves in on him, and Philipsen kind of just chops himself or crashes himself in the wet.
I feel like it's the kind of corner where every single rider was kind of surprised at how much it bended. And at the front, they start braking, like very close to the corner. And Philipsen comes with more speed because he's like, oh, I can do this without braking, my friend. And then eventually he just ends up having to brake very late because he was going to ride into everybody else, and in doing so, while being slightly hindered in the corner, but that just people are taking a corner, so that happens. He just gets swacked in the floor by, I can't even place by who. Like, it's just, he just came up with a bit too much speed, and as a consequence, he crashed. And race incident.
Yeah, I think so. So he goes down. I think he might have been. You never say never with Philipsen, but he might have even been too deep through that corner to win. Bauhaus comes out of the wheel in the corner and wins. Wins handily. Milan comes late. Finishes second. Vauquelin third. Bettiol was fourth. So EF weren't barking up the wrong tree completely. Like, he was a live chance for the stage. Vendrame fifth. Velasco sixth. Caruso sixth. What is this? Is everyone Caruso seventh? Sorry, what the hell? Mayhofer eighth, Vermarka ninth, Arndt 10th, Ayuso 11th, and Pascal on 12th. So 2 Bahrain lead-out men, 10th and 12th, shows you how well they were positioned and in front with 500 meters to go, that they still finished so well in this stage. Ineos, I think I thought it was a chance for Ganna, but I just couldn't see him in the end. I don't have the full list of results yet, so I don't know if he got dropped on the climb, but yeah, it wasn't one for him today. And I also think, okay, Vauquelin third, but I think Pidcock, the way his sprint looked so far this year, I don't think one for Pidcock too. I think the later stages are for him. Anything else? I mean, if it's going to be a mess, if there's a last, we should have known, Benji.
Nah.
Corner at 250. I said it on the wrong stage.
Not on these gradients.
I know.
I felt like this was too hard for Bauhaus.
Yeah,
Bauhaus dropped over a bridge in Slovenia when I watched him a few years ago. Like, he's not the most versatile sprinter. And for him to then show up and do this, that's really bloody impressive for them to be there with 4 riders. So full props for Bahrain for pulling this off, because I did not necessarily see it coming. Milan seemed to have struggled with the climb before. So I think that took away from his sprinting power at the finish line, because otherwise I reckon it would have been closer.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, if you said to me, oh, who's a slightly better rider on the hills before a sprint, Merlier or Bauhaus, I would have been like, much of a muchness. I would, and Merlier was gone. He was not competitive in this sprint. So Bauhaus clearly a little bit better, or not a little bit, quite a bit better in that regard. And he had 4 top 10s in UAE. He just missed that Tanunda sprint behind Welsford. He actually came with good speed in that in stage 1 of TDU, but today he gets it right. And if he gets it right and the other favourites get it wrong, he's always there or thereabouts. And yeah, congrats to him. He and Bahrain with the double today. So the good day for them. They just, Bahrain, we never talk, like, everyone, if you did a poll, Benji, who's a better team, Trek or Bahrain, of the public and the media?
Trek would always win that poll, but
then you look at the World Tour wins at the end of the year, and you're like, Bahrain victorious, nominative determinism, they win a lot of races. So even though that, so good on them. GC Unchained, someone fell out of GC. Don't know who.
Ooh la la, we've got some Remco news again.
Okay, wait.
Stuff about. You can go.
Ayuso still leads GC at Tirreno, 6 seconds ahead of Milan and 14 ahead of Vauquelin, Tiberi, Vingegaard there. So we still got the serious stages to come. Tomorrow's stage is another, maybe we tune in a little bit late, Benji, 208 kilometers long. We've got a 17 kilometer, 5% climb to 1,500 meters. If it's rainy and cold, it's a long, that's a miserable stage. You couldn't pay me enough to be a bike rider. Obviously, I've got the talent. But yeah, imagine doing 208 Ks in the wet at Tirreno transition stage. Fuck that. You reckon breakaway or sprint again?
I reckon sprint. Climbs way too early in the stage, even though it's 70 kilometers at 5%, typical RCS. But nah, it's sprint. It's sprint.
You reckon?
And yeah, it's sprint.
Because if you're Alpecin, Jasper can get over that.
But Goggle's gone, so one Namaste gone.
Reespeak was strong today, but yeah, who else they got? Who else can sprint here? Albanese, Velasco, Zangler's good. Should be fine on that. I would love to see someone like Gregoire in the break. I think he's too close in GC, isn't he? Because he did such a good TT. So you got to respect him. I would love to see some breakaway action. Like, don't you think is Scoin still in the race?
Yes.
I think you owe it to Scoins to let him to go in the break. Don't you think? What's got a higher probability? Scoins helping pull all day?
Try, eh?
Or helping pull all day for Milan versus Jasper, or current form Scoins on this stage with that 2.7k 4% climb near the finish?
A wise man once told me, it's all about probability. You can do both.
Well, he might not, because if Trek don't help control and Scoins goes in the break, that won't be both. That would do. But yeah, okay, it's interesting. I'm going to stick with my gut and go with the breakaway again. I'm going to go with Bastien Tranchant from the breakaway.
I like it. I'll accept it. Tranchant's a good rider. I will say that Break gets dipped with 300 meters to go. Tranchant gets caught, 300 meters to go. Very specific prediction right here. And the eventual winner from the sprint in the peloton is Cavendish, definitely dropping on that climb.
See, still here.
Yeah, he is. I
actually disagree. I actually think that sort of climb is better for Cavendish than the stage today.
Probably. But Philipsen wins anyway.
Yeah. Unless he's not
Nah. Merlier wins this time around. We got a 1v1 it. It needs to be equal now. And then they fight again on, what is it, stage 7? Or is there another sprint stage coming? Stage 7, right? Is the last one, or 8?
Free Kwiatkowski. Free Kwiato. Let him in the breakaway. Come on, he's offered so much to the team. Organa. If those two get in the break, see ya. So, yeah. Okay, that was Tirreno. Benji said there's some breaking news. What is the breaking news, Benji?
We've got we should like implement the Remco segment, right? At the end of like the podcast of like, has Remco said something about the stage or not?
That's why we make them go for a while, because like if we just wait half an hour after the stage, we get a good quote to tack 10 minutes on.
So I'd like Luke to send me, while I'm talking about this, the source of this. But first of all, I'm looking at HLN, where Evenepoel is saying the team was strong, the legs felt good, and I did I don't know how to translate that actually. Ik heb een zaakje gedaan is the Dutch thing, which means I made I got an advantage out of this stage. Is I think the
Didn't he say this morning that the UCI was playing with their ass?
What?
Yeah, that was the literal translation with the head sock thing. Your language needs to be studied, brother.
I have no clue what that statement even means in Flemish. I can't even translate it myself. So like, he had a Cycling Pro interview where he also said some stuff about UAE Team Emirates, as in he said along the lines of UAE Team Emirates tactics were a bit strange. I mean, their choice to let those boys, new leader Plap and stage winner Buitrago, ride. If you still have 4 guys at the front of the rankings, you can still make one person work, right? They did that for a while, but J-Vine stopped again a little later. There was a shame for all the classification riders because it means Plap and Buitrago, 2 dangerous men, can stay away. My response to that is you shouldn't be complaining about UAE because your team literally helped them right away.
That shows I like Remco. I'm glad we did the interview with him last year. But he couldn't be further wrong on that quote. That shows a pretty big lack of reflection on what actually happened in the stage. Like UAE had their GC guys were on the limit. They nearly got dropped. Almeida and McNulty. They knew that. You could see all the other climbs. Like those guys were sliding. They were hanging on for dear life. And why would they're not the favorite. Before this race, I don't care that someone's wearing the yellow jersey. But now, the gap isn't too big between Remco and them. Remco is the race favorite, I thought, before the race. And yeah, you're right. Like his team launched Plap, Benji, and then when Santi jumped, Van Wilder didn't do anything. So I got no problem with the way UAE rode today. They didn't create the situation.
Yep.
They didn't make the race hard. They were limited in numbers. They used Vine, and Vine, when he pulled, he did the whole descent, and he kept the gap the same. And then they got to the valley, 4 Ineos there, you guys pace.
Yeah, and they only have 2 rides left for Montbrouilly because Fisher Black dropped on the climb before. So
Yeah, and Soler was gone.
it was only Vine that could do it. So yeah, I disagree with the take as well. Anyway, that's our Remco Said Something segment.
Yeah, I mean, they need to look at how they played today's stage quickstep. Same with Broe and I think Visma. I think.
By the way, I'm gonna correct your vile insinuations about the Flemish language.
Oh.
Remco said that UCI was playing with his ball, not with his ass.
Okay, that's much more normal than fun. Fair enough.
It's actually
they say it in Spanish as well. They say it in Spanish. I know.
It's a mainstream sentence.
Yeah. It's like an Italian. Like you're busting my balls. You're breaking my balls. You know, like it's.
Yeah, but in Flemish it sounds much better.
I like it in The Sopranos. I like it better there. Anyway, that was Remco's interviews. I mean, we got to say, like, he blamed the clerk and then had to apologize. This is so much wasted mental energy, Benji. Like the Klerk thing, like it's avoidable. Like having to apologize for it. Like it just seems that he gets. And I'm not saying he shouldn't have any personality. That's not what I'm saying. And I agree with what Freeba said about that. But when the race first finishes, he's really like on a heightened state of tension.
Yeah.
And then he calms down afterwards. But it's good for quotes, I guess. Maybe that.
Yeah, it's like I fully agree with you. As in,
he's a rational, smart person.
Yes, that's the thing.
Yeah.
So 15 minutes later, he's probably going to have a different opinion than the thing he said in the interview itself. So,
but I'm the same. I'm the same. I'm completely crazy. Like if you, I was a bit like that, so I understand it. But maybe they just shouldn't let him do flash interviews. 10 minutes. Is that a solution? But then I don't want to recommend that either.
Yeah, Remco crosses the line. Phil Lowe shows up with duct tape, tapes his mouth.
Phil Lowe does a stopwatch. He does a timer.
Let's go. 15 minutes. Wait, shut up.
It sounds stupid. It actually makes sense. Like in what other sport would you like put a mic in their face when they're still at 180 heart rate? It isn't that bad an idea, but anyway. I think that's all.
Like you said, it's much more fun if they do have personality. So I like riders that say what they think, and I don't blame them for being wrong in that, even though we like correcting them if they're wrong. But I don't blame them for being wrong about that, as long as they then, like, for example, as long as Remco then goes towards Tim de Klerk and actually apologizes, and that's apparently what happened, which that's okay. Then it's like, okay, we can close that chapter.
I almost take a step back and I'm thinking, this is every stage race. This sort of thing happens. It is like you don't see Vingegaard. Vingegaard's like tranquilo. You're here to do a job, execute a plan, relax. Nothing's ever too big a deal.
Yeah, but no offense, but Jonas does not have the rock star personality as I see it. Or at least it doesn't come out.
No, like he obviously
because in
doesn't
Danish interviews he kind of does.
Jonas actually is like but no, he's not like a superstar like Poggy. Poggy really in the public eye in the camera is much more got a bit more showmanship about him.
And that's okay. Like they're cyclists.
Yeah, but Poggy after the race, except for Tour of Flanders, but like if something goes. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying, like, stage races, energy management, and they're like, it's just so much wasted energy on that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Or maybe it doesn't really matter. That's all from us today. Hope you enjoyed it. We're back with another double header tomorrow. And stay tuned for that. Hope you enjoyed it. See you then. Ciao.